My parents left me 2 million, but my brother, who never cared about them, now claims he deserves it. Growing up, my brother Jake and I could not have been more different. I was the quiet, obedient child who did everything I was asked, always striving to do what was right. Jake, on the other hand, was a free spirit who never seemed to care about the rules. He was the type who would break curfew without a second thought, and as soon as he turned 18, he was out of the house and barely looked back. The tension between us was palpable. I felt burdened by responsibility, while he was carefree, enjoying life without ever looking over his shoulder. Our parents always had a complicated relationship with Jake. They loved him, of course, but they couldn't understand his disregard for everything they worked so hard to give us. He never seemed to appreciate what they did for him. He was always chasing the next thrill, the next party, the next adventure. It frustrated them. I tried to bridge the gap, to be the child they could rely on, the one who would visit every weekend, attend family dinners, and take care of things when they needed help. I believed that if I just did enough, I could fill in the gaps that Jake left behind. In some way, I thought that perhaps by being the good child, I could make up for his absence in their lives. As the years passed, Jake continued to drift away. He would show up for birthdays or Christmas, but those moments were brief and always on his terms. Our parents would try to reach out to him, but he would shrug them off. Their attempts to have him involved in family life were met with resistance or indifference. As the years wore on, I became the one who took on the responsibility of caring for them. I helped them with their bills, drove them to appointments, and spent hours at their house, making sure they were okay. I did this without hesitation, believing it was my duty as a daughter to take care of them, especially when Jake refused to be involved. Then came the day that changed everything. My parents had been in their late 60s, and while they were healthy, they weren't getting any younger. I noticed that they were becoming more forgetful, a little slower than before, so when they sat me down one afternoon, I could sense that something was different. I had no idea that this conversation would change the course of my life. "We've been thinking about our will," my mum began, her voice calm but laced with emotion. "We've decided to leave everything to you, Allison." I was stunned. I stared at her, my heart pounding in my chest. "What do you mean, everything?" "Everything," my dad confirmed. "The house, the savings, everything we've worked for, it's all yours." I could hardly breathe. It wasn't that I didn't deserve it. In some way, I had always believed I would be the one to take care of them in the end. But I never imagined that they would leave it all to me. They told me that they had made their decision because they knew I would be responsible and would care for their legacy. I couldn't have been more grateful and overwhelmed at the same time. I promised them I would take care of everything, and I truly meant it. It wasn't until a few months later, after their passing, that things started to unravel. My parents died within 6 months of each other. My mother from a heart attack and my father just weeks after, broken by the loss of his wife. I was devastated, and the weight of grief was heavier than anything I had ever experienced. But amidst the funeral arrangements and legal documents, something else was brewing that I couldn't have prepared for. Jake appeared out of nowhere. It was the first time I'd seen him in over a year. He showed up at the funeral, his expression blank, his hair longer than usual, and his clothes disheveled. He barely spoke to anyone and kept his distance, but there was a look in his eyes, a mixture of anger and disbelief, that I couldn't shake. I had no idea why he was here. He hadn't cared about our parents for years, and now he suddenly decided to make an appearance. The will reading was scheduled for the week after the funeral. I had already been in touch with the lawyer who had handled their estate, and everything was set to be transferred to me as per their wishes. But Jake wasn't satisfied. He showed up at the lawyer's office, demanding to be a part of the proceedings. "Deserve a share," he said, his voice cold and steady. "I'm their son too." I felt my stomach drop. This wasn't like him. He hadn't earned anything in their eyes. He hadn't been there when they needed him, and he hadn't even made an effort to connect with them for years. I had, and I had done everything for them. Why should he get anything? The lawyer looked uncomfortable but nodded politely. "Jake, the will specifically states that everything is to go to Allison. There's no provision for you." But Jake wouldn't back down. "It's not fair," he snapped, turning to face me. "They always favored you. You were the good daughter. the one who always followed the rules. Well, I deserve my share. They didn't give me anything. But they left you everything. That's not right. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It felt like a slap in the face. I had been the one to show up, to care for them, to take care of their every need, while Jake had distanced himself from them for years. Now he was trying to claim what was rightfully mine. I'm sorry, but this is how they chose it, the lawyer said, trying to defuse the situation. There's nothing I can do. But Jake wasn't ready to accept that. He stormed out of the office, leaving me sitting there stunned and shaken. I knew that the situation wasn't over. I could feel it in my bones. Jake wasn't just angry. He was determined to get what he thought he deserved. Over the following days, Jake began to spread rumors about our parents' estate. He told people that I had manipulated them into leaving everything to me, that I had somehow swindled them out of their inheritance. He even went so far as to call relatives, trying to turn them against me. It was like he was trying to rewrite history, trying to convince everyone that he had been the one who deserved the money and the assets. The tension between us reached a boiling point when he showed up at my house one night, demanding that I give him his fair share of the inheritance. He didn't care that our parents had made their decision. In his mind, he was entitled to half. Jake, this isn't about fairness, I said, trying to remain calm despite the anger boiling inside me. They made their choice. They left me everything, and that's what I'm honoring. You weren't there for them when they needed you. Why should I give you what's mine? He sneered at me. Because I'm your brother. You think you're the better child, the one they loved more, but I'm entitled to my share. I shook my head, my heart pounding. You don't get to come back now and claim something you never earned. You abandoned them. You didn't care. And now because they're gone, you think you can just take everything. Jake glared at me, his eyes filled with bitterness. You always think you're better than me, don't you? Always the perfect daughter. Well, I'm done. I'm not going to sit back and let you get everything, just because they chose you over me. He left, slamming the door behind him, but his words hung in the air. It felt like a betrayal, not just of our parents, but of the relationship we once had. He didn't care about our parents, and now he was trying to tear me apart for something. That had nothing to do with me. In the end, the legal battle wasn't as long as I thought it would be. The will was clear, and there was no room for dispute. Jake eventually gave up, realizing that he had no legal standing. But the emotional toll it took on me was immense. I had lost my parents, and now I had lost the brother I had once cared so much about. The $2 million wasn't about the money. It never was. It was about the love and trust that our parents had placed in me, the bond we had built together over the years. Jake's actions were a painful reminder of how much he had neglected our family, and despite everything, I was left with the inheritance, but without the closure I had hoped for. Now, as I stand here with the wealth that came from their passing, I realize that I've lost more than just a family. I've lost the idea of what family is supposed to be, and no amount of money can ever fill that void. Thanks for watching. Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories.